Hey everybody, Fishman here. Welcome to another video. This is a recent build of mine. This is a custom breeder box, and I had built it larger than what you could buy commercially because I wanted a nice stable environment for frying eggs, which meant that it had a fair amount more water in it, which also means, of course, that it has a fair amount more weight. So instead of having all that weight hanging off the side of the tank, I had built this bracket. The bracket is attached to the metal framework of the stand that is holding up all these tanks, so it's not a big deal for it. And that way the tank itself is only holding just a small tiny fraction of that weight, just enough to keep it stable and in place. And I'm very happy with it. It works out really well. I haven't had any issues with it. I mean, it's still a relatively new build, of course, but I like it. So I want to try and take this up to the next level. As I mentioned in an earlier video, I want to make some mini sumps. So I'm going to start off with this tank here. This is one of the tanks in my 7-foot rack system. The top tank's being filtered by 2 box filters going to high humidity planters. The current bottom tank is not being run at all. This tank and the one right below it are being run by a very old sump. This one here, this is a 30-year-old sump. It takes up an awful lot of floor space, which would be nice to have back again as well. And it's getting old. I mean, it's beginning to leak a little bit around the edges, and it's just time. So I'm going to take a bunch of this old plumbing here, and I'm going to run a bypass for the top tank. The top tank's not being filtered by the sump, but I do use it as an overflow. So I want to bring that out as far as I can comfortably without putting any stress on the tank itself, and have it run down into the sump for water changes, and have it not at all interfere with the space around here, because this is where the bracket's going to go, and it's going to attach to those 2 uprights. So like I said, I want all the weight taken by this, because, well, this is going to weigh an awful lot more than that little breeder box. It's going to be quite a bit larger. Now, one of the problems is those 2 tanks are filled with an awful lot of fish, a whole pile of adult Africans and South Americans. So there's an awful lot of bioload going through that sump. So I can't just unplug all that and have it run by a new filter. So I need to design this so I can run this filter without interfering at all with the current sump, so not interfere with the current filtration system until it becomes acclimated and fully cycled. And of course, I want to make sure that it runs as well as I want it to. So it's going to run off its own pump, of course. I mean, it was going to run off its own pump anyway. Those 2 pumps that are running it are quite large, and much larger than I need them to be, so there's no point in burning all that extra power for nothing. So I am going to have a much smaller one. So these brackets are, like I said, going to be bolted directly onto the uprights. So as you can see to the right now, that part right by where my hand is, that is 1 inch thick, and it is going to get cut out, of course, and then drilled, and that is going to be bolted directly onto those uprights. Once this is all put together, I will clamp it in place and then drill the uprights in place. I will do all the drilling for that there, and then of course bolt it on and use washers and all that stuff. It's going to be more than solid enough. Now, as I was going through the process of making this, I was thinking that because of the way this is being designed, there might be a fair amount of weight on that sump, and it's just going to be held together by some screws. So the bracket is actually going to have a couple of its own brackets just to add a little extra support. I'll get to how that's all going to work in a few minutes. So that's where the bolts are going to go. They're going to go through there and then through the 1 inch upright. And once tightened down, it's going to be more than solid enough. So there's a number of ways I could have cut this out, but the easiest way is just to run it through the bandsaw. It doesn't need to be that accurate. All I have to do is just follow the lines reasonably well, and it's going to be more than good enough. So one of the reasons why this project is not going to get finished today is this is all going to get bolted and attached right to the side of the aquarium where a lot of splashing is going to happen. The other one, the one I put on for the breeder box, is much lower and there's really no splashing at all, so that didn't need to be sealed at all. This does. So once this is all put together, I'm going to lightly bolt it in place, make sure everything fits properly, make sure everything is to my liking, and then I'm going to detach it, and this is going to get sealed thoroughly. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to paint it, but it is going to get a number of coats of varathane. Make sure there isn't any chance for water to get into here and First off, possibly causing any swelling or warpage or that sort of thing. And then, of course, also to make sure that, I don't start growing my own mold farm. So that's important. I want to make sure that's all done. And then I also still need to figure out and design all the different aspects for how this new sump is going to work. Partially for the bypass process, the fact that I'm not actually going to hook this up to the current plumbing. But we'll get to all that in time. So here are the two uprights. There's one other thing that needs to be done to the one furthest away from us, and that is the one that's going to be on the left. It has to get around the current overflow, because that overflow is going to become part of the overflow system for this. So this pipe here needs to get around that bracket. The exact positioning of it is not that important. It does have a bit of leeway up and down, as long as it has a slight downward slope. But as you can see here, once the bracket is in place, it is in the way. And I do want it to go around there smoothly, so I need to cut a circle out of this just to make sure there's plenty of wiggle room. And of course, I forgot to record it. And it's a simple process. I just put a circle on top of it, drew around it. As long as the circle was larger than the diameter of the pipe, it was more than good enough, because I can, like I said before, just wiggle that pipe until everything is in place. So now I'm just going to drill out the two holes, and that's pretty much all there is to this, except of course bolting this all together. It's not, again, that difficult to do. I decided to put 3 screws in it, and I think that's what one of the time I decided that it requires a bit more reinforcing. I'm fairly certain that it's strong enough, but again, it is so simple to add a little extra security to this now. After it's all set up and I find there's a bit too much weight on this, it's much more difficult. So here we go. We're going to bolt these on like this, and then just a simple matter, of course, of taking another piece of plywood. You're going to see here in a second. And there you go. This is just going to clamp on the bottom, and that way it's bolted into the upright and also to the platform on the bottom, and that's more than secure enough now. This is just overkill, which is fine. I'm fine with overkill, because there you go. This is the project now fully done, and this is a simple matter. You can see there's plenty of room for the pipe to have an elbow on it to go around into this. And that's going to be an interesting little bit of jury rigging for when I get this all set up for the test run. But in the end, it's going to be very straightforward, easy to have this run off of this alone, because that'll come into the left-hand side of the filtration system I'm going to build, and then somewhere on the right-hand side there's going to be an overflow built, and that's going to go back into the drain system for, well, I have the drain system for the entire fish room, so it's going to hook into that. So there you go. This is as far as I can get today. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments section below what you think of all this. And like I said, more than strong enough. And as you can see, there's a split in the middle for this. I used as much offcuts as possible. I didn't want to use any new materials for any of this. Again, just trying to save money on projects that definitely don't need anything extra for it. So I'm going to seal this all up and get it ready for stage 2. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and bye for now.